Welcome everybody to I, the Serpent Tarot, for another pick a card reading. So today's reading is being filmed so that it will publish sort of sometime near the end of 2024 or the beginning of 2025, just depending. I do filming quite a bit ahead, and then I go by what Spirit sort of suggests to me in terms of what is published and when. But the idea is at that kind of period of time where you're ending a year and coming into a new year, so all of that kind of energy, new energy that we have, to look at what in your life can be healed and refocused. And the inspiration came from a deck or a series of decks actually, that I recently got. They're a sort of a trio. They're called the Intuit Trio, and it's from the creators who create all the various Intuit tarot decks and oracle decks. Excuse me, I'll be using one of their Astro decks later in the reading as well as this. But this is a kind of a genius set of decks which has the first deck in it is a range of areas where you can heal. Then there is a range of areas that you can focus on to help with that. And then there's an empowerment message. So I thought that let's have a look at a couple of areas. So in helping in the choice, I actually shuffled and asked for one of the two areas of healing so that you can kind of go, oh yeah, I feel like I would fall into balance or I would fall into overachiever or whatever it is, to draw you to the right deck and of course, right pile. And of course you can go to more than one if you want. But there's also a second one, I don't know what it is, and for each of them there is a focus and an empowerment card, which we'll go to later. But what we're going to do is we're going to start with the two areas of healing. We'll look at that with tarot. And then we will look at the focus and empowerment message. Then we'll look with some astrology, and then we'll bring it all together. So could be quite short, sharp, and to the point, hopefully. But it kind of depends on how complex the areas are and whether they interrelate and so forth. So at this point, when I'm filming the introduction, I haven't done the readings yet, so I don't know how long they are. But my guess is it'll be relatively short and to the point, but we shall see. Just before going into the pile choice, just something I say every once in a while, I don't say it very often, but I do personal readings for anybody who's interested. There's never any assumption that because you've come to a free tarot reading on YouTube that, and you're part of this collective, that you should be coming and getting a private reading from me. That's completely up to you. It's just a service that's there if you're interested. I do it through my Etsy store. The details are in the description box below and also on the About page for my channel. Also, it's kind of timely to say about that I've put in place it's not really a diary or a calendar of when readings are available, but a couple of sort of basic principles. One is that the store is open most days, except for every second fortnight it's closed for 3 or 4 if I have a lot of personal business I have to do days, so that I can do personal business, catch up with friends, that sort of thing. The other limit to it is that I've put a limit of how many I will do a day. Most days it doesn't reach that limit, so most days the store will stay open. But if you ever come to it and it says it's shut for up to 24 hours, that's what's happened, and the next day it should be open. So sometimes I only shut it for a few hours. If I get a few readings overnight that come in, which is often the case because I'm in the southern hemisphere and a lot of you are in the northern hemisphere, then I'll do those in the morning, and then if sort of something comes along that brings it to that limit, I might shut it till the end of the day and then just open it just as I'm about to crash out for the night. So it won't be shut for long when that's the case, but that could happen. And that's for me balancing my workload and my life and dealing with some health issues I'm dealing with and all that kind of stuff. So, but it'll be open more often than not, I guess is what I'm saying. So if you're interested, it's there, but don't feel sort of compelled by anything I say. Just do it if it's of interest to you. Okay. So in terms of the pile choice, as I say, these cards that are on the top of the pile are one of the two areas of healing that is available to you now for healing and refocus, empowerment, that kind of thing. So for pile number 1, we have balance. For pile number 2, we have family patterns. And for pile number 3, we have overachiever. As I say, go to more than one if you feel like you kind of get drawn to a couple of those. You think they're two things I definitely need to heal. Then it might be that there's 4 areas that kind of interrelate that would be helpful. So do whatever works for you, but when you know what reading or readings you want to go to, I've got the timestamps as always in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome pile 1 to your reading. So you came to the reading with balance. As you can see next to that, I have the 2 cards around focus and empowerment, which we will look at it a bit later. And then we also at the moment covered is the second area of healing and their accompanying cards. One of the things that I built sort of consciously into the structure of this, I'm going to use two different tarot decks, one for each, just in case the same cards come up, because they will tell us something that's of interest as to whether it connects or whether it's a similar energy and a similar healing process. But I also, in choosing the tarot decks, I've got the Ouroboros Tarot and the Windmill Flag Tarot. The Ouroboros has a lot of white light, sort of kind of artistic, and there's a lot of white on it. It's very sort of open and very clear, and the Windmill Flag is sort of darker. And I'm sort of feeling that if you were drawn to this one, you kind of really know about it. The second one might be a little bit more hidden, or might need to be sort of brought up to the surface. So it may be the less obvious one for you. So I just thought that the decks would cover that energy. We're going to be fairly simple, as I say. We're going to have a look at a little bit more about what is the area of healing, and then Spirit's advice around that with tarot. Then we're going to get these other cards, and as I say, then we'll look at astrology as well. So when I look at balance, like, this could be anything. It could be that you have your emotions and your thinking out of balance. It could be that if you think about the four elements of the tarot, you've got your emotions with cups, you've got sort of like the material grounding of things with pentacles, you've got what you believe and think with swords, and you've got your ambition and your energy and the action you take with wands. They could be out of balance in some way. It will be interesting, given that one, to see what kind of balance we get, both of the minor arcana cards and also how much there's major arcana, because that's also the balance of what's internal to us in minor arcana and what's more external to us, or bigger picture sort of signposts on our life journey. So that will be interesting to see. So even the balance of the cards will be interesting for this particular one. It could be a work-life balance. It could be a balance of like your emotional life with like your ambition. But there's sort of something here where that needs to be healed. That's the concept here. It's not so much that balance is what you need to heal something else, because really when the focus is more here, like how we kind of distill something, that it becomes an action or a focus to do that. And when we ask for advice, that's also going to be the case. So this is much more that there is something out of balance, I would say, that needs healing to be brought into balance. Could be chakra balance, could be anything. So let's see, let's just get 6 cards from the tarot for a little bit more information about what this balance issue is. And as I say, in this particular one, because of the nature of that, I'm going to also be looking at the balance of the types of tarot cards we're getting to explain the issue. So we have 4 of Wands reversed, the Star reversed. I'm going to have to layer these over a bit. 6 of Pentacles reversed. Like, there's a lot about inner and outer world here already. We've got 3 reversals. The Empress. The Emperor. Okay. The King of Pentacles reversed. Okay. So looking at this, firstly, I would say that out of 6 cards, we have 3 major arcana. So there's something, the balance of this is quite pivotal to almost developmental, or not developmental as such. I mean, you may well be grown up and matured or whatever, but like, key stages in your life path. And, arguably we probably go from the Fool to the World quite often in our lives. And then there's almost the cradle to grave of when we're a child through to when we're old. But I always think with those that there is an energy of external or pivotal times in life. And one of the things I would say here, before I even look at what the balance or the issue that we've got here around the minor arcana, is that there's something here. The principles about your life that are being looked at is your North Star, your hopes, your dreams, your ambitions, all of those sort of things, the things that you think you're here for, all of that kind of thing, combined with what you nurture, create, and your divine feminine sort of energy, and your action in the world and your status and your sovereignty in the world with the Emperor. And when I look at the balance of those, because we're talking about balance, there seems to be an emphasis that is positive at the moment on creativity, and it may even say that there's something about creativity and nurturing that side of you that helps. But there is a submersion at the moment a bit about your worldly ambition. And that's interesting because the 3 internal cards that we have with the minor arcana and court cards are Pentacles and Wands. So we have the material world and our ambition, our action. Though this does connect to, for some of you, to family, because the Four of Wands reverse can be things like family, marriage, and we have the Emperor reverse and the Empress reverse. So for some of you, there could be an imbalance in a relationship that is particularly showing up, I think, around material choices. And you are actually equal, but it's somehow that it's not actually recognised that that's the case. One is more dominant than the other. And I would say in this, probably you need to kind of balance that out, because it looks like for some of you, if it's in a relationship, that there's a material shift in your fortunes, and maybe one who was ahead is now not going to be ahead. It is equalising it, but that in itself can be an interesting tension on a relationship. So bringing that into balance, like becoming a power couple rather than one being powerful, is possible in looking at this. Beyond that, I think for you, if it's not about you in relationship to someone, then there is a real focus at the moment on the material outcomes and teamwork and your ambition, because this is also about teamwork and it's reversed. Six of Pentacles reversed is sort of being equal. King of Pentacles reversed suggests that there is maybe something here about you working out, am I part of this team? Am I part of this situation? Am I equal to this, or am I ready to step up? So for some of you, it may be about how do you balance moving on in a career or moving on materially. It is a very internal process for you, though. The thing that you are showing to the world primarily is your nurturing, caring, and abundance. So there certainly would be a sense in either of these things, whether you are rising relatively in terms of status and material outcomes with a partner, or whether it is that you are rising compared to people that you used to work with or used to be around or used to be friends with, and you're getting into a different peer group. There is something here where a lot of your ambition is either needs to be suppressed, or it's a case that you're suppressing it too much to stay equal. So I think there's something here about you coming into growth, and that's what the Empress is saying. Growth, material, abundance, all of that kind of thing, and how you are sorting that out with others around you. So whether that's literally happening right now or whether it's about to happen, it suggests to me that there is an imbalance there, and you may sometimes have suppressed your own ambition or your own outcomes to fit in, but that is actually blocking your own sovereignty. So this is what you have to get into balance. So there's something in that space for you. So let's get 3 advice cards from the tarot. Page of Wands reversed, the Hierophant reversed, Four of Cups. Okay, you're very different. This is the other thing. So it may even be that when we've got the King of Pentacles reversed and so forth, and we've got the Four of Wands reversed, some of this imbalance, if you're coming into your sovereignty and your own abundance and your own growth, it's very different to a workplace that you're in, your family background, friendship or whatever with the Hierophant. Understanding that that is the thing that you need to look at for what your ambition is, and embracing that breaks you out of this rut. You're kind of in a rut about, I want to be who I am and I want to really become abundant, and it's all ready for that to happen, but it's sort of like it's going to upset some people. Probably more from sort of jealousy or relativity than anything, but for some of you it may be doing something very different to what your family wanted or what your friends do or whatever. But this is understanding the thing to work on is the Wands energy. It is, what is your ambition? What actions do you want? And because it's a page and it's reversed, it's saying you could actually plan this, but you need to actually consciously do that. So bringing that up to the surface. So what is your ambition? What do you want? What actions do you want to take, even if they're kind of antithetical to what other people around you might want? That's what you have to get into balance, because there's been a little bit more of fitting in and not being sovereign and not moving forward. But you are about to be in a growth cycle, and to take advantage of that, you need to do that. So let's see, what is the focus energy for this? Exercise. Okay, now that's interesting given all the wands. This could be literal or it could be metaphorical. So if it is literal, then it could be that you are about to grow in some way. I mean, just got a flash for some. This might be about starting a family, actually, and getting your body in balance for that. And if that's the case, then, you need to sort of do more action not just the kind of like emotional stuff, but move into action. So there could be something along those lines. Or if you've been dealing with health issues where you feel like you should be able to sort of be abundant and healthy and so forth, but your energy, materially and also to some degree just the energy to do something is running a bit low. It could also be talking about balance on that level. So there could be some very literal physical sides of this. And again, it might be doing something a bit different to the standard regimes, like shaking it up a bit. But otherwise, I think there is a lot about this for most of you that's got to do with claiming your own ambition. So I think exercise here might be just move, just do. Just and get into a rhythm that suits you. When you do exercise well, you build a rhythm, and the more that you do it, the more confident you get. So I think that could be the energy. The empowerment message is, sorry, I turned it upside down. Every self-honoring boundary you set has the potential to heal the other person. So yeah, where there is something different, you need to do something different, or you need to take sovereignty, then do it, because it actually will help the other person. If there is some pushback, if there is some threat of you moving into what you could be, putting some self-honoring boundaries around that. So it's not reflecting on them, it's reflecting on you and what you want to do. And just moving forward and doing it is what you need to do. So I do think there's a rebalancing in relationships as you come into your own power and ambition and life path for most people. If this is around something physical though, you may need to say to people, no, I'm exercising this morning. I can't, play video games, or no, that piece of chocolate cake looks lovely, but I'm watching what I eat, or something like that. Okay, so that's a very visible one that you're probably very well aware of. Another area of healing for you that maybe is not as obvious is stress. Now that makes sense. When you're out of balance, you have stress. So you may not be really aware, both with this and with other things, how much you're taking on that is stressing you. And if there is a physical thing here, exercise is a great stress relief. So there could be a connection. And it could be about understanding that at a core with the Empress that we had before, you're strong physically, but you're running a bit on empty, and that's because of stress. So they could be connected, and it could be very physical, or it could be as a result of this or other things, there is stress as an underlying drumbeat in your life. So let's see what we find out about stress for you in terms of a area that you can heal. Two of Wands, reversed, King of Cups, Six of Wands, Temperance reversed, Ten of Pentacles, and the Six of Cups reversed. Okay. So the first thing I would say, before anything else, if any of you, there is some sort of physical thing going on, we had the Empress there, which suggests in the end, like a strong constitution and so forth, just running a bit on empty. And here we have the Ten of Pentacles. So certainly if any of you are literally looking at healing and you're worried about a health issue, this is a very strong indication, both visibly and also to some degree as their drumbeat under it, you have a strong constitution. So I just wanted to say that. Beyond that, if they're connected around you moving into achieving something, then yes, you are going to achieve something. You are going to make more money, move up the ladder, something like that. And you may be, part of your reluctance might be about upsetting other people, but it might also be around like, what am I taking on? And for some of you, this is a stress. Whatever this is, you've actually gone through this pattern before. You kind of recognize it. It's like as a result of something in the material world, there is a sense with the Six of Cups reversed, there's an understanding that something happened before and you don't want that to happen again because it was out of balance. So I think they are connected. You do know your own response to something. Even if you haven't yet been aware stress is operating, it is operating for you. So understanding that the mechanics of that, but having faith that at the end of the day, you're okay. It's more within your power to do something. This is coming out of recognition. It's like it triggers you. When you are recognized in some way, it stresses you, as well as, probably making you feel good. I mean, we feel good when we're recognized, but it puts stress. And it reminds me actually of a book I read years ago. I think it was called something like Borderliners, but I might have the name wrong. It was by the author who wrote Miss Miller's Feeling for Snow, if I remember correctly. And there was a passage in it. It was in a boarding school, and there was a choir, and there was a very strict choir mistress. And the author was saying, what would happen is the choir mistress would go past each and listen very clearly to everything they were doing. And every once in a while, she'd go, excellent, or something like that. And what the author observed was that kind of was wonderful on one level, but it sort of struck fear because the judgment had occurred, they wanted to live up to the judgment again. And so I often, taking that, because it was one of those profound things I read and always remembered, I always will say to people that we worry a lot about criticism and the effect of criticism. And I would always say that 9 times out of 10, criticism tells you more about the critic than it does about you. But 1 time out of 10, you need to take notice of it. Equally, praise is an interesting thing, or being recognised as an interesting thing, because it is a form of judgment. Consciously or unconsciously, when the person does it, they are judging you, and they are therefore putting themselves just a little bit above you. So it does cause a kind of stress, because then if you want to keep having that good opinion, you want to keep having that good opinion. So it kind of almost enslaves you to their other opinions, even when they're not good. So it's really, really important not just to be critically analysing critique that comes to you, but also to do the same with praise, so that if you take it on, it's your conscious decision to take it on, as opposed to you feeling somehow that you then rely on that person for their approval. Because there's a dynamic here that I think is going on, because this is really about relationship and how people respond. And so it's almost like, if people praise, that's great, but it puts some stress on you. Maybe it puts some stress on relationships. There's a kind of a vicious cycle operating. So just to let you know that is happening. You are strong emotionally and strong constitutionally, so you can deal with this. But what it does is it puts you a bit off course. So it's sort of important just to know that you have a stress response to success. And if you understand its dynamic, you can bring it in better balance. And that is connecting. It's saying that like the stress is a symptom of being out of balance. So what is the 3 cards of advice for you around this? The Hermit reversed, the Chariot reversed, and the 7 of Swords. Okay. It says you are going to need to speak out. You can't just hide away and hope it fixes itself up. You need to kind of take action and all that kind of thing. You need to speak out, but you don't have to be in a hurry. And to know that you're realistic, like to take a very realistic view of it, and use your mind to analyze. Critical thinking is really helpful in this situation. If you use that mechanism that I was talking about, then you're not slave to other people's opinions, and that frees you to do what you need to do. So this is slow down a bit and be very clear in what you say, but be prepared to speak up for yourself. So what's a focus that will help you around stress? Travel, okay. Movement, like, and again, it doesn't have to be a long way with the Chariot, but like, just going away for a weekend could help. But equally, seeing this as a movement, seeing it as a point on the map that you're going to, and being focused on that rather than focused on all the rest of it could be helpful. The message of empowerment is allowing people their own path is a powerful way to show incredible unconditional love. So it's like also do to others what you want done for yourself. And it could be the thing, if you've always allowed other people their path and what they need, if people start to arc up or tell you what you should do or whatever it might be, you can gently remind them that you're on your path and they're on their path, and that's what friendship, that's what relationships are about. Okay, so let's just get 3 astrology cards too for any other information about the 2 of these areas of healing and focus that are open to you to explore and understand now. So firstly, we have Venus in the 2nd house, Taurus. I have extravagant. I think this is like maybe spoil yourself a bit too. Because there is something almost a bit ascetic about this, to be honest. It's sort of like, it's like you kind of, you achieve and you move, and like that Empress wants to be sort of abundant or whatever, but then there's always kind of this don't show off, don't do that. Like have a nice trip, buy some nice stuff. I think spoil yourself a bit. Congratulate yourself. And don't worry about what people think about it. Then we have South Node, 12th house Pisces, be of service. Now the thing is, yes, you can be of service and connected to others, but the South Node is what we're moving away from. So this could be saying that you have had a little bit too much of a focus on serving others and not enough on yourself. So that might be another thing you need to bring into balance, because to try and do both becomes too stressful. So, but there's a way of dealing with that as well too, because if it's in your nature to be of service and that's what makes you feel good about what you do, then you can choose, professions and activities that are of service to others, but that also nourish you. They pay you well enough. They nourish what you want to do. They use your talents to the point that you feel any validation that is given to you, you can own and know is really true. But there could be a bit of a thing here about get a little bit in balance too, and it's not all just about others, So it is again about finding the right balance for you. And then we have Neptune in the 11th house, Aquarius, love for humanity. So you really care about others. This is the thing. And it's part of the reason why if other people then validate you, you put a lot of store by other people's opinion and a lot of store by how people feel within a group, all of that kind of thing, because it comes from a very generous heart. But you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself. That's what's out of balance, really, in whatever is triggering this. And if it's a health issue that's operating, then you're probably kind of giving a bit too much and not getting enough back. So I think the overall message here is like move for yourself sometimes, like have the boundaries that you need for yourself and enjoy yourself a bit. And if you're doing well, don't worry about what other people think of it. Okay, so we just want to finish with a message for you from the Enchanted Forest, just to bring it all together. But I think the two areas work very strongly and clearly together, and I think the message here is pretty clear for you. So just to close out the reading, we get participate. Do not confuse intention with entitlement. The entitlement to demand from the world leaves you with nothing. The world is rich and so are you. I think you aren't really doing that. I actually think it's about getting in balance with others who are doing that, because like everything in this message is not you doing that. It's others doing it with you. It's getting that into balance. It's like you can participate on an equal level. You bring what you want and you do what you want and you have those healthy boundaries. But of course, it might also be a message that when you're actually shifting it, not to shift it too far, the pendulum can swing one direction, it can swing just as far the other direction. So there might be a little bit of a thing there about everything in moderation, everything in balance. But I just think it's out of balance at the moment in the other direction. And I think when you start to move into who you are, what you really want to do, and you get that into balance, everything sorts out. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 2, to your reading. So you came to the reading with family patterns as the choice around an area to heal or to look at. What we have here is the other one, as at this point not seen. We will get to that. We also next to it have the focus and the empowerment message for each of them, also which will come a little bit later in the reading. Now, one of the structural things in this reading that I sort of built in, we're going to use 2 different tarot decks just in case similar cards come up in a way that is meaningful. But there's also another part of that in the design of it that I was thinking about when I did this, and that is that the first deck we're using, the Ouroboros Tarot, has a lot of white around. There's a lot of light in the energy. It's a very clear, very crisp, white sort of energy deck. So it's sort of what's seen, what's easy to see. So that I felt, if you are drawn to a pile because of a card, then you're likely to kind of be conscious that this is an area that needs healing. Whereas this might be either a subset of that or something else that needs healing that you're not as conscious of it. So for that, we're going to use the Windmill Flag Tarot, which has got a lot more black backgrounds and it's a bit more shadowy. It feels a bit darker. It's not a shadow deck, but it's got a darker hue than the Ouroboros Tarot. So I felt that kind of worked quite nicely. So when we're looking at family patterns, this could be ancestral karma. It could be patterns that you're aware of. If there was a pattern in the way that your parents related to each other, you might replicate that a bit in relationships. It could be if the family was a bunch of workaholics, you might be a workaholic. If they were finding it hard to sort of focus and create wealth, and that you might be having the same issue. So I think there's sort of something here that you, in one or more members of your family, you can see that you have a pattern and that they have patterns. Now, for some of you, as I say, with ancestral karma and things like that, it might not be a pattern that you're replicating. It might be a pattern that you're here to release. So we'll see if anything comes up in the cards that suggest that. But beyond that, I think this is more about understanding some patterns that you are seeing that you might without being conscious of and healing, do yourself, or do the opposite of, because that's the other way we sometimes react to family patterns. I remember reading a book by a security expert in America, Gavin DeBecker. The book was The Gift of Fear. Brilliant book, actually, about understanding your intuition. And in it, he said at some point that his father was an alcoholic. As a result of that, he doesn't drink. As a result of that, his brother became an alcoholic. So it's like you can respond in one or the other way, but we often respond either against or along with something in the family. So it's probably something in that space. But let's have a look with tarot. We're going to get 6 cards from tarot to get a bit more of an idea about what is the nature of the family patterns we're talking about. Then we're going to get 3 cards of advice before we get the focus and empowerment message. So, High Priestess reversed, 6 of Pentacles reversed, 10 of Cups, 6 of Cups reversed, 9 of Wands reversed, 6 of Swords reversed. Okay, so the first thing that really strikes me when I look at this is that there's something in this family pattern that is hidden and not spoken of. There is a overarching sense that, oh, we're a very happy family and we love each other and, we all get together for wonderful seasons, holiday, events, whatever, and it's all wonderful. And it probably isn't, but the way that it is packaged up and almost spoken of is like that. But there is something that needs to come to the surface to kind of almost equalize an energy on some level. Because I feel like the memory of the things in the family as being rosy is not true. It was a very tricky environment. So I would say for most of you, there were a lot of unspoken undercurrents, and I think maybe issues around fairness that were not clear. And it's like a drumbeat underneath. So whenever you're around members of the family or whatever, you probably sort of sense it, but it's just not spoken of. And it's very prickly to bring it up. So it may or may not be something you can speak of and heal by talking with others. It might just be something you have to process for yourself. This doesn't look like ancestral karma to me. What I was very much thinking about was if I saw things like judgment or possibly the world, things that kind of have that sense of karma around them, that it might be that. But I don't think it's that. So I think it really is a pattern that is in your much more immediate family. It could also be that like if you're in a happy family at the moment, you can almost feel an undercurrent that's a bit similar to something that was not resolved or spoken of, or you're worried that because it was not resolved or spoken of before, that it could replicate, particularly if you feel you might follow a particular pattern. So there's something here, I would say, from your childhood that you either have to resolve within yourself because it just was never spoken of and your kind of birth family are never going to look at it. Or you may feel you have to bring it up to the surface, but it needs to be brought up to the surface anyway, consciously, particularly if you are now starting your own family and you feel like those things, if they're not brought up to the surface and understood, it'd be very easy to go off course and end up doing the same thing. So it's something that was denied. I wouldn't mind betting with the 6 of Pentacles reversed, it has something to do with fairness. So it could be that, you're in a family where all the girls were favoured or all the boys were favoured, or it could be that there was sort of something inherently unfair in the dynamic of your parents, you had a father who had the purse strings or whatever and was very domineering on the mother or something. I'm just making up examples, and I'm not saying it has to be any of them in particular, but it just wasn't spoken of. Whatever this was not spoken of. And I don't actually feel it can be healed necessarily by trying to confront it. Though we are going to get 3 cards to see what to do, so we'll see what it says. I feel, though, it's more like understanding it and reconciling it for yourself and knowing that sometimes you can't change it. Like one of the things I'm getting from this when I look at this is that underneath there probably was love in the family, but the way it was expressed is not quite the happy families that is seen there. And like your parents loved you as much as they were capable of loving, and it wasn't really about you, or the way that they expressed it might have been very different to what you wanted or something like that. I do think that there was love there, but I think that it wasn't quite what it was being presented as, and you felt it and knew that. So I think that has to be sort of healed at the moment. Let's just get 3 cards for advice about what to focus on to heal it. Seven of Wands, Knight of Cups reversed, Five of Cups. For some, you might want to speak up about it. Seven of Wands is a courage card, so it could be that for some of you, the only way to heal this is to speak it, even if it isn't accepted, because I don't know that it will be, to be honest. For others, I think it's the courage to let go of the old ideas of what you want and the disappointments and just let it go so that you can move forward towards something and build something that you want. I really do feel with this that part of the thing about not replicating the patterns and not being held hostage to the patterns is getting to the point where you can just move on even without them changed. Then I guess for some of you, you could speak up about it, because if it doesn't change, it doesn't matter. But you've got to be ready to say, I'm giving up on the concept of what I wanted and the disappointment that came from that. And I have the courage to sort of move on from that concept. So either to understand and forgive, to understand but to speak up. It's like one of those two things, but it's so that you don't replicate that. And you don't confuse love with disappointment, because I think there might be a sort of a feeling there as well too. So let's have a look at the focus energy that would be helpful. Sacred space. Okay, look at how they're all connected. I think for most of you, it is suggesting very strongly that you're able to create a better family pattern yourself, or, the soul family or the family you create, and making that sacred and not replicating the things is more important than bringing it to the surface and somehow having the validation of it occur. It's like what's important is what you create now and the people that you do connect with. So a message of empowerment is being grateful for life's experience is one of the keys to attaining inner peace. So maybe the thing is, if you can't change what was unfair and what was not honest in a family pattern, whether it directly affected you or whether you just saw it affect others, then maybe the thing is to be grateful for the understanding that gave you, so that when you create your connections, you have a sacred space. So that may be a way of letting it go and not feeling that the pattern just almost inevitably replicates. Okay, let's see what the second, and maybe a bit more hidden, it could be another layer of this, or just might be something that has yet to surface area of healing is for you. Competition. Yeah, there's something. So I think they're connected. I think there's something about fairness, and whether it was you in competition with a sibling, or whether it was, like your parents in competition with each other, or aspects of the family, like one sort of like offshoot of the family competing with it. There's something like that, I think, that was part of this, because it was something that wasn't fair. But it may then kind of come out in how you deal with competition in general, and what does it mean to win and so forth. So let's have a look and see what sort of needs to be healed in that area for you. Strength reversed. Knight of Pentacles, Eight of Pentacles, Ten of Swords, Ace of Wands, Three of Wands reversed. Okay, the first thing I'm going to say to you is sort of slow and steady wins the race. I think that what this sort of looks like, let's say these two things were connected and what we're talking about is maybe sibling rivalry, and it's only an example. It doesn't have to be that. Then when I look at this, I see like maybe there was the golden child. Like maybe you're in a narcissistic family and you were the scapegoat child and there was the golden child. And that sort of brought up this whole thing about competition, and is it okay to feel that you want to compete, and is it okay, and that kind of thing. When I look at this, there's a sort of thing about conserving your strength for the long term. Like it's like whatever, it's almost like, and again, it's just an example. You had a sibling who was very good at school in the early days, very quick. And that was because they're very good with the retentive memory. That's a big thing when you're young, and maybe your thing was going to be later in life because it was going to be a creative thing that you could build and you matured your view of the world, or you might have been better at like research and interesting and new ideas, and that's not judged as being a big tick when you're young. It's later on. So I feel as though it's saying like there's something about conserving your energy for the long haul and working on your skills rather than worrying about whether it's going to be fair or not. Generally in the world, once you get outside of those dynamics, I mean, you learn from them because, in a workplace there's dynamics that are unfair or whatever, to recognize it, but you can also learn how to conserve your energy and build your skills. And And that ends this sort of dramatic feeling that you've got to keep competing or that you're not going to work so that the new energy comes through. It is saying right now, one of the things that you need to do is think about your long-term outcome, because it is, you've got something where, as I say, slow and steady wins the race. And that doesn't mean that you couldn't have massive inspiration and be creative and all those things. It's a set of skills which are not as recognized in the early years of school, I would say, or maybe they're very different to what your family wanted, and that could be part of it as well. So, you were the poet and the artist and the creative, and your brother was the kind of studious one who was going to be the lawyer, and the family is a family of lawyers. There's something like that. These are just examples. But it is saying that with the Three of Wands reverse at the moment, one of the things to heal this is, instead of thinking about each thing as a competition, it's what's your long-term goal. Think long-term. Conserve your energy. Think about what is the inspiration, the creative energy. And I do think you're very creative. In a broad sense, creativity is so many things. Because there's it lets go of the drama of the immediate. So what's the long-term goal? It also makes me think, I just had a flash of chess, and in chess you could, and I'm not very good at chess, but theoretically in chess, you might sacrifice something. You might lose a knight or a bishop or something. So at that point in the game, you've kind of it feels like you're in a more difficult position in the competition. But if you have a long-term strategy and you know where you're going. So this is the thing. Instead of thinking about the competition, think about the destination. That's what this is saying. So what is the advice for you? Five of Cups. Yeah, this is all about letting go of disappointments, and the fact that we got the same thing. They're connected. Whatever you're dealing with there is connected with how you view competition. Page of Pentacles. 10 of Pentacles. What I will tell you is, if you had some sort of competition with a sibling or something like that, or if your family didn't really agree with what you wanted to do for a career, you're going to do very well. If you move past the disappointment and you start to kind of plan for what you want, you're going to create, and again, you're going to create your own family kind of energy. You're going to create your own set of values. You're going to create money. You're going to create something lasting. Again, slow and steady wins the race. That's what it's saying. And it's not because of a less flashy or interesting energy, because with the Ace of Wands, and the Three of Wands, they're very creative, very inspirational, but it's on a different time frame and it's in a different area. And it's you won't fully see it until you've gone quite a long way down the track. But it's sustainable. So thinking of it in that way rather than the glittering prizes immediately is how you heal that energy. So what can you focus on? Children. Okay, what here? There's something here about what you also show your children. So this is why we've got the family patterns, if you have children. Or if you don't have children, or you don't want to get, married or involved in a way to have a family of your own, I think it's about what is you would pass on to the next generation. What is the legacy? It's interesting too, we have a child here and then the man. There might also be, if you had a competitive family, which is possible here, you might even have had one of those families where the parents sort of played as adults with children, and so the children kept losing. There might be sort of something of understanding the relative levels and having that kindness, what do you want to pass on as patterns that encourage people to work together, because look at how they're working together in a obviously a tug of war, as opposed to sort of being individuals and competing with each other. So the message of empowerment is, you are the boss of your life. You can hire, fire, and promote accordingly. So yeah, you move towards becoming what you want to be, and you work out who you want and who's sacred within that, and you think about participation and the long-term goals rather than the short-term rewards. Okay, let's just get 3 astrology cards to bring all this together. So firstly, excuse me, we have Mars in the 4th house, Cancer. That makes a lot of sense. It's the action that we do, Cancer, around family and in the home. Rules the roost. There's something here about, I would say whatever was the dominant thing made you feel that there was unspoken, unfair rules or competition or something like that built in your family patterns. But you have the capacity now to create something very different. So if you use that energy and what would have been competitive energy into more like action and liberation and creativity, and you bring in a legacy, then you break those family patterns for the next generation. We also have the South Node in the 6th house in Virgo. Be free of guilt. Yeah, like let go of the guilt or the issues around that. There's something about the past that was not what it appears. You may also see the other side of this. I'm presuming in this that you were feeling like not seen and somebody else got the unfair advantage, but you might have actually had the unfair advantage and you might be very aware of it. And like it's not your problem. That was a family pattern. All that's responsible for you is to actually redo this. And so instead of it being slow and steady, if it wasn't some sibling or somebody else in the family or something like that going on, or if you saw it happen with your parents and you couldn't do anything, if it's either of those sort of things, then it's, again, you can build something different. You just have to work out the direction you want to go in. And we have Mercury in the 9th house, Sagittarius, inspired by the pursuit of knowledge. Yeah, and the pursuit of knowledge, like is a long-term, a lifelong thing. Have a lifelong idea about that. I did get a sense, actually, I did get a bit of a hit, and I didn't say when I saw children, that some of you may work with children education or something like that, bringing in, a better way of raising children, of educating and so forth, to look at the diversity of skills. Because it is very true that different, in like traditional, say Western education, like, I grew up in and so forth, there is a particular emphasis on retention and memory. And it's much later that other things come in. And so that can give a disproportionate concept of who's the cleverest kid or whatever. Like there's so many different types of intelligence. So maybe for some of you, this is a sign that you could actually do some wonderful work in that, because you understand it, because you've seen it. You've seen it in the family patterns, and you've seen what that does in terms of competition. So let's just finish with an inspiring message for you from the Enchanted Forest. No debate. You don't need to do anything to be more worthy. You are valuable regardless of your circumstances. You always have been and always will be. It's not up for debate. Yeah. Like if it was before, or if there are all those sort of things, or if competition was inbuilt into your family or any of those things, that's not the point now. Make a sacred space, create new rules, let go of that past, and inspire through knowledge and through understanding of skills. It's very powerful, actually. I think you could do an enormous amount of good in the world. I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 3, to your reading. So you came to the reading with Overachiever. And you'll see here that we don't know what it is yet, the second area of healing. And for each, we've got the focus and empowerment, which we'll look at a little bit later. But firstly, we're going to explore it through tarot. And in the design for the tarot, what I felt was that if people were primarily drawn by what the card was in the choice, then it's probably an area of healing you're aware of. And so I wanted to use a deck with a lot of clarity, a lot of really easy to see imagery. And so I chose the Ouroboros Tarot because it uses a lot of white, like kind of white borders, clear lines, that kind of thing, a lot of colour. So that's kind of what's really clearly seen. And then this may be something, it may be a subset of this, or it may be a different thing that needs to be healed, and it might be less conscious. So either more from the shadow or just more unconscious. So I thought I'd use the Windmill Flag Tarot because it has like black borders and it's darker sort of imagery. It's not a shadow deck. It's not a dark deck, but just in terms of colouring, it's kind of different. And I wanted to use two different tarot decks in case similar cards came up, because that could be instructive about how these things might connect or how patterns of healing might connect for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at each of them with tarot around what it's all about and some advice, and then we'll get the focus and empowerment messages, and we'll get some astrology and bring it all together at the end. So when I think of it, overachiever, I mean, that's a pretty obvious thing that needs to be healed for people. If it got to the point where they've got to do everything and do everything well, then, type A personalities, they talk about all that kind of thing. You can exhaust yourself. And you can get to the point where even if you're very efficient doing 2 or 3 things, once you get to 4 or 5, maybe you're not as efficient. Or you just feel you have to win. and you have to be better. It usually comes from some form of insecurity or something that's been instilled in you, maybe in your childhood or through education. So it's understanding, like, do you have to, why do you want to overachieve? And is there an end for it that is in and of itself that then you go, okay, I can do this for a period of time? Or is it a different thing that's being a dynamic that could potentially exhaust you? So I think that's what we need to have a look at. So we're going to start with 6 tarot cards to get a bit more idea about how this overachievement is operating for you. And then we're going to get some advice around how to heal it. So firstly, Ace of Pentacles, Temperance reversed, Queen of Pentacles reversed, Ten of Wands reversed, Five of Wands, the Devil reversed. Okay, all right. So there's an interesting pattern, actually. This gives us a different nuance to this in terms of the overachievement. One of the things for you is that there may well be one thing that if you could really focus on it, that has the best opportunity. I think this is trying to say that. Free yourself up to really focus on the thing that most matters, because aces are always blessings, and Ace of Pentacles is something that could have a great material outcome. Most overachievement is either monetary driven or ego driven, and there's a kind of a connection between the two. And there's nothing wrong with wanting money or your ego either. It's just how we get it into balance. But it's certainly an indication here that there's one thing that could really be the thing. But this is also a pattern you need to be aware of, because it looks like what could happen with you and how this plays out is that you get these sort of, like, you might be very entrepreneurial, get lots of good ideas, and they have lots of promise. But the minute that it gets out of balance with everything else you're doing, because the way that this is portrayed, the way the overachiever is portrayed is doing too much all at once, then the enthusiasm to see something through reduces. And it's like, oh, it's too much, and you just let it go. And then there's sort of like conflict that comes out of that, and you're looking to free yourself. So I feel like you tend to get yourself in situations where you take on more than you should, or the next idea, you take that on, and then something else has to give. And so what tends to happen is that you're always chasing the next big thing, but you're not necessarily doing the follow through. Like that's how the overachievement dynamic is becoming a difficulty for you. Because if it was just, you're overachiever in anything you do, fine, like apart from potentially exhausting yourself, that's okay. But it looks to me like for you, you're a person of great ideas, and a lot of them have really good things. And there's one at the moment that Spirit really wants you to look at, because you need to get out of this pattern to be able to make that work. Because if you follow your normal pattern, gets out of balance with everything else, you lose commitment either to it or to something else, and that becomes a liberation. So it makes me think of people. I know people like this who have lots of talents. Like, in fact, it actually often happens with people who are multi-talented. Because it's hard to know, well, what do I really focus on? I've often said to them and others that to some degree, the person who is just, like a brilliant ballerina or a brilliant athlete, in many ways, even though they will push themselves and push themselves and push themselves, they're lucky because they know what it is that they want. But if you are talented at a lot of things, sometimes it's just hard to know which one's going to pay off. So you try to do them all, but it's not possible to do them all. And then what happens is that it's sustaining things becomes the issue. So they might try this sort of approach, and then if that isn't working really quickly, then they'll try another approach, and if that isn't working really quickly, they try another approach, because they can do any of them. But it's like the follow through, it's the see through. So I think, like the getting it to come to an outcome, rather than always freeing yourself of some burdens or whatever for the next big thing, and it's like it becomes a vicious cycle. So I think there's something about that. It's like cooling your jets here and really committing, rather than going into that pattern. Even if it means at this point you go, okay, there's 3 other things I do have to shelve for the moment. I'm going to do that, but I'm going to see this through. I'm going to see that potential through. Look, put all your overachievement into the one thing, and it'll start to work for you. So what's the advice? Hanged Woman. Yeah, you need to think about things differently. You need to shift the way you're thinking about achievement. And you need to work out, what do you think you're here for? Like, what if you went back to really think about what you're here for? You're not here just to win everything. And maybe that's been instilled in you in your childhood or something. But like, that's not what it's really about. You're here to actually follow your life path. If you can rethink that can help you decide what thing to stick with. King of Swords. Yeah. And you need to be very objective about it. Because the other thing is, I say, if you've got lots of talents, you probably want to excel at all of them, but it's kind of like be objective about the one that really is your life path, because you're kind of like jack of all trades and master of none if you just kind of do everything. So be realistic. You can't do everything all at once. Bring that into balance. Have a plan. Think differently about it that reconnects it to what your life path is. And then all that energy, the overachiever who really wants to succeed, is put into something that you achieve. And then, next up you can do something else. But it's like at this point, just see something through. That's what you need to do. So what's the area of focus for you? Relaxation, okay. And take some time out. So, like if you're going to drop some things, drop them so that you can have some work-life balance. That's part of it. But it's also, I feel like that's got a secondary message. I mean, I think it is saying don't do everything because you're going to exhaust yourself. But I really think the message in here is also don't do things for a time and then drop it for the next thing. I think this is to take time out type of thing to refocus what you want. And it's almost what at the end of your days when you're relaxing and thinking back, what do you want to think back and see? I think there's a sort of a thing about getting into that mindset, like that gets you back to what your life path is. So the message of empowerment is enjoy life. It is eternal. Yeah, it's like, that's the other thing. It's like, are you even enjoying life when you're doing all of this? And if you're constantly chasing the next thing. But I really think the main advice is choose the thing that is most important to you now and follow that through to its natural conclusion. Then you can look at other things. There's nothing, there's plenty of time. It's eternal. There's lots of things to do. We reincarnate, all that kind of thing. But do that and relax. Like, don't think you have to be everything to all people all at once. Because if you do that, you almost inevitably you're not anything to anybody because you're kind of always moving on to the next thing. And if you are someone who's trying to like build a business or something like that, and you've got lots of talents and lots of ways that you can do it, don't give yourself a ridiculous time frame that says, if this doesn't work in 2 weeks and I'm going to do something else, because you're never going to get anything to work. You've got to give some time, relax a bit, chill out, like give things time to develop. You're meant to enjoy this as well as achieve. Okay, so what's the underlying energy that may be about this or is another thing that needs to be healed? Jealousy. Okay, so these could be connected. You could be thinking other people are successful or I've got to sort of prove myself. Or it may be that you are achieving certain things. And so there may be for some, given those two together, we'll see what we get. For some of you, it may be that there's a new opportunity and you've got to drop something, otherwise you can't get on with it. And so you're going to have to do that. But whatever this new thing is could make people jealous. But again, you've got to kind of get in the mindset that says, I'm still going to focus on the one thing and see it through because I'm meant to do that. And I've got to be really dispassionate about it. But jealousy, you could be jealous of others. This could be a shadow thing you have to heal in yourself, or you could be attracting jealousy. So let's see a little bit more about it to see if we can work out which it is. Page of Cups, the Magician, the Four of Pentacles, Death, Strength, Nine of Wands. Okay, so this is pretty big. Whatever this is pretty big. I think for most of you, there's a big thing. This is why this is important to heal at the moment, that you could really succeed in. I suspect this is the next step from it. If you take the advice here, you're going to have to deal with this because this is saying you've come into using your skills really well. You've realigned them to your heart. You've made some decisions that rely on your strength, and suddenly you hit this sort of like miserly energy or jealous energy, and it's like it's the thing that could trip you up at the finish line. So I feel like this is saying that once you really get into achievement that's operating for you, at the moment it's not because you're kind of like not seeing things through. But if you really do see this thing through, then you're going to get jealousy. It could even be for some of you that someone is prodding you to do a lot of things because they actually know that way they can get ahead of you in something. So there could be some manipulation going on. But if you do take this advice, I feel like you really start to get on the pathway of making decisions that are from your true strength. But there's a kind of a sense where jealousy might come in as a kind of it feels like it's undercutting you. It feels like it's making you think, oh, was this the right thing to do or whatever. So, or it could be that you really start to achieve what you want, but someone else is achieving something else that you were thinking about too, and you start thinking, well, can I have that too, and how do I do that too? So it really depends on whether you feel this is internal to you, or whether you feel that you're the jealous one, or whether you feel jealousy is coming towards you. Let's see what the advice is, because that might help us work out which it is. Though it may be depending very much on who comes to the reading. The advice. 6 of Wands reversed. Okay. 8 of Swords reversed. The Moon reversed. Okay. I think you're going to have jealousy coming to you. I think that you're going to understand once you take this advice and you see something through to its true achievement, it's going to bring this up to the surface. You're going to see a jealousy. It's going to be someone around you, might be a frenemy, and you thought they were a really great friend. But there's somebody who's jealous, and it's going to come to the surface. But it's a liberating thing. Understand it's liberating. But one of the ways you'll know is they will not want to recognise what you've done. They will nitpick at it, or they will say, but you didn't do this. Oh yeah, you might have, won that prize, but you didn't do this. Or yes, you might have started that business, but you've been neglecting your friendships or something. There's a kind of it'll be obvious on that level. And I think when you look back, you'll see that was a person who probably kept encouraging you to do lots of things, because that kept them ahead on something. So it's probably something in their terrain that you're going to move forward with, but that energy is coming to you. So you just need to be aware of it, so that it doesn't make you think, oh, I've got to cross the finish line on everything, because that gets you back to this. So it's like you need to be really dispassionate and make a strategy and stick to it. Okay, so let's see what the focus energy to help you deal with the jealousy around you. Cleaning. Okay, yeah, clean out anything that's not good. If this is toxic energy around, clean that person out of your life, or just if they've kind of tried to besmirch something, just wipe it down and move on. Keep the clarity. Keep the clarity. This is a mental exercise that will help you. The message of empowerment is take your power back by claiming full responsibility for your life. Yeah, don't let somebody else tell you, oh, that's okay, you did that, but what about this? This is your stuff. It could be even within your family. It could be a parent who becomes, jealous of you, someone whose judgment of you and direction of you at some point you followed. But this is you claiming you. And when you get this response, you kind of clear it out and take that power back. Okay, let's just get 3 pieces of astrology information around it for you. Firstly, we have Mars in the 4th house, Cancer, I feel, rules the roost. It's interesting. That came up for one other, so some of you may have come to more than one. So it could be pointing to someone, a parental figure, maybe a male parental figure that is involved in this, that created this dynamic and is maybe the responder. Or it could be you taking control of your own life. Take your power back. So it depends on whether you've dealt with a family, male member probably in the family that did this, or a person in the family that is behind competition and ambition, and you taking back control of it rather than having them do it to you. Then we have Sagittarius rising, grand adventures. Yeah, look at it as an adventure. You don't, if you go, I want to travel to Nepal, you don't sort of jump on a plane and go halfway there and then decide you'll go somewhere else. It's like see it as an adventure and see it all the way through and enjoy it. That's the best thing to do. You can't go to 5 different places all at once. You've got to make a choice and follow the direction. And we have South Node in the 2nd house in Taurus. Be safe in your body. Okay, so that's interesting. It's an interesting way of describing that energy. I mean, to me, the South Node in Taurus is maybe moving away from worrying as much about that. So maybe it is around sort of physical things and the physical outcomes and more about what the adventure is. I think it is a call to, because the South Node is what we're moving away from. I think it is a call to be more adventurous and see something through rather than trying to kind of cover everything. I think that's part of it. I think something was instilled in you that if you weren't good at everything and achieved everything, you somehow hadn't achieved anything. And it's breaking out of that and consciously choosing what you're pursuing and knowing that you're able, you've got what you need to do that. That is all you really need. And then not letting somebody tell you, oh, well, that's not so good because you didn't do this other thing. Okay, so to finish it off, we just want to get you in a sort of final message of empowerment or advice from the Enchanted Forest. The pause is the shift. Your past is now behind you. All you desire is right in front of you. There is something, definitely. Pause to reconnect with your power and follow the pull of your destiny. Yeah. Pausing and just stopping trying to do everything and be everything to everybody, and really deciding what you're going to see all the way through, seeing it as an adventure, seeing it all the way through, breaking those things and not being influenced by someone who's jealous once you achieve it. That's the thing. This is like, you've got to brace that past pattern to achieve what your future has in store for you. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.